Hey, you should do's. This is 0.4 step 3, the should do. The hill we climb, dig deeper. These are some tough questions, and what I'm hoping you'll do is give them some real thought. Talk to somebody else and jot down some of your ideas. All right? There's not really one right answer when we're talking about poetry. There are better answers than others. The better answers are because they're focusing on the words in the poem, using the text to support their ideas. So if you take a look at the first questions, well, the directions, I guess, first, watch video, ooh, that's me right now, video 0.4, step 3. After analyzing the hill we climb, spend some time reflecting on key lines, allusions. Allusions, you say? What are those? I'm so glad you asked. I'll tell you in a sec. And ideas, writing your responses below. So I think it's best to do this with somebody else because, like I said, they're pretty tough questions, and that way you can talk to each other, bounce ideas off of each other. The first question, what just is isn't always justice. So there's just a line here. The question is actually in this pink row above. What do the following sentences mean to you? What does it make you think of, remind you of, or feel? That's what poetry is doing. Through particular, specifically chosen words and images, those pictures the mind creates as you're reading, and structures of sentences, poetry makes you feel, think, or be reminded of something specific. And that's how poets get their point across. So I just want you to talk about this. You probably noticed that it rhymes, right? But it's different words. Just is a lot different than justice. And why do you suppose she uses those two words together? What does it make you think of? The next one, a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. What's the difference between being broken and being unfinished? Democracy can be periodically delayed. It can never be permanently defeated. Here again, we have some contrasting words like justice, broken, unfinished. Here we have delayed versus defeated. What's the difference between those two? And then the last one, history has its eyes on us. What could that possibly mean? All right, talk about it. The next section is really interesting for me. Allusions are really important in this poem. And what are the allusions? You asked this earlier. I made you wait all this time to tell you. They are expressions designed to call something to mind without mentioning it explicitly. An indirect or passing reference. So what I've done here is I've shown you where she got the allusions from and then where the allusion is. The title itself is an allusion. It's a hint about something else that you'll find in specifically the Sermon on the Mount, which is a biblical story. A lot of allusions in Western literature come from the Bible. And so we can go back to the Bible to find the connection just to make sense of why the hint or why the allusion is there. So in the Sermon on the Mount, we hear about a city on a hill. So that's the connection to the title, The Hill We Climb. So check it out, dig a little bit deeper and research it. Look up the Sermon on the Mount. Look at how it connects to the title and then talk about how they link. The two things I want you to jot down, you only have to pick two different allusions. And I listed a bunch here, 2, 4, 6, 7. So of those 7, you pick 2. On the left, you're going to list the text Gorman alludes to and the line in Gorman's poem that calls it to mind. So is it the Sermon on the Mount? And then what is it about the poem that refers or hints at that original text? It's the title, hint, hint, for that first one. The Hill We Climb. And then this next question, this is where it's going to take you a longer amount of time. What is the effect of using the allusion in the poem? Why does she want to remind us of this sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, when we're reading the poem? What connections are there? And this is an interesting way to look at it. How do these texts talk to each other? The original and then Gorman's poem? How do they seem to kind of talk to each other? How are they connected? And then in parentheses, I have a hint for you. Notice how many of the allusions are rooted in social justice and civil rights. Oh, my light went off. Can you still see me? I'm kind of dark. I think that's all I have to say. Oh, these three too. Chat with a classmate. I better turn the light on so you can see me. Otherwise, it's kind of creepy. Just move over here. So for these three questions, the directions are chat with a classmate about the next two questions and jot down some notes on what you talk about. Oops, I should say three questions, excuse me. And the first one is, what barriers continue to stand in the way of America fulfilling its promise? So take a look at the promise Gorman mentions in the poem, this promise of liberty and justice for all. And think about, just in your own idea, your own point of view, how is America failing in fulfilling that promise? 8 is an interesting one. I want you to go back to stanza 9. And in stanza 9, she talks about the hill we climb, which is also the title of the poem. And she explains that really what she thinks the hill we climb is building bridges, not fighting with swords. So how are you climbing that hill personally? Think about in your own life. How are you forging connections, building bridges instead of breaking things down, instead of destroying things? Because that is what Gorman says we really have to do in order to get further up this hill. 9, what's something that you as a student can do now or in the future to get us further up that hill towards justice, peace, equity, all of those good things? The next part, step 4, is actually to write your own poem. And I hope you'll have fun with this one. You can do whatever the heck you want for this one. Be creative, be original, let those juices flow. I've given you some tips here and some reminders of the rules of poetry, because the rules of poetry are different than writing paragraphs, which is also known as prose. And so follow these, use these to help you as you write your own poem, if you aspire to do that. All right, good luck on this work.